What would happen if you combined Deep Space Nine with a bunch of disgusting alien creatures? Well, you basically have Halcyon 6. Yep. Okay, review done. It's over. A portal from some far-off section of space has opened, revealing a swarm of biovessels. In the aftermath, the Federation is destroyed, and only you, the commander of Halcyon 6, can try to pull the Federation back from the brink. That is the basic setting of this game. Really, it's not much that hasn't been seen before. However, the gameplay is where this game shines. But let's just get the narrative out of the way first. Halcyon 6 tries to play like a space opera. Different alien species are constantly coming to chat with you in your station, and what are supposed to be riveting and interesting events occur constantly. However, none of that was particularly engaging to me. The story and dialogue are quite frankly bland. They play off the basic sci-fi fantasy species tropes. The capitalist alien species, the warmongers, the robotic collective, etc., etc. The writing itself is campy, which I get the feeling is what they were going for. Unfortunately, that tongue-in-cheek comes off more as generic, interchangeable characters than anything more interesting. In terms of the random encounters, I feel like they suffer from what I'd call FTL syndrome. Basically, the encounters lose any value because they are random. Story options are little more than choose the best option menus. And in addition, there's really no characters to add any depth to what's going on. It's just, you run into some ships, deal with it. As opposed to you run into some ships, and now a character has to deal with some form of, I don't know, conflict or something. That's usually what characters do. I mean, really, the game doesn't suffer too much from this, but I would have liked to see something more interesting in the narrative mix. Let's just get to the meat of the game, the gameplay. Halcyon 6 is quite clearly inspired by XCOM, both the old and the new version. The player has a space station where they build facilities to upgrade and build new ships, akin to how XCOM have their underground bunker. Beyond the station, there is an overworld where the player can send out fleets of ships to fight enemies and do various missions. All construction is based off of 3 resources that can be mined from resource nodes throughout the map. Just like the XCOM system, occasionally portals will open and the main enemies of the game, the Trull, will come out to occupy resource nodes and bombard your station. The limited resources of the player have to be spread out over the many areas that might be being attacked. Or do they really? I mean, after having played through the first act and a bit beyond, it doesn't appear the player is ever swamped to the point of not being able to deal with the enemies with one single fleet. And a fleet, you can think of it like a squad in XCOM. Keep in mind that I was playing on normal, but still, even with what seems like 10 enemy fleets on the board, I dealt with them using only one fleet of my own. We'll come back to this point in a moment, so let's move on for just a second. It seems a good time to discuss the combat system. It's Final Fantasy. I mean, what else has to be said? Turn-based combat with a max of 3 units on each side. I mean, what really stands out in the combat system is the polish of it. The means of fighting is to attack, or, I mean, you could call it casting spells, whatever floats your boat, people. Anyway, thereby, you deal damage and most often apply some form of status effect. The important part is the status effect, because the combat focuses very heavily on these. Basically, attacks can apply and exploit the effects. If the ship that has, say, damaged engines is hit by an attack that can exploit damaged engines, then that ship takes more damage from the attack. I really enjoyed this system because it takes what is usually a combat system that devolves into just hitting each other and, you know, the most damage wins, into a game of figuring out what the best firing solution is. The system is really a good take on the standard turn-based system and is simple while at the same time having enough complexity to keep the player thinking. Now, as I said we'll return to the question of difficulty. The normal difficulty just isn't, quite frankly. I've played more than halfway through the game and haven't lost a single battle. The only one that I really came close to losing was the one boss fight I played through. The others were a simple matter. The issue, I think, somewhat stems from the relationship between the combat and the world map. Basically, the fleet maintains the level of health that it had at the end of a battle. While this sounds like it would be bad for a player, it actually means that if you heal properly, which quite frankly was very easy, I ended almost every combat with basically 100% health. Because of this, your fleet can go around tearing apart 6 or 7 enemy fleets before it ever needs to return to your station, thereby very easily cleaning up a board. While the game certainly has problems in that it lacks good narrative and has some difficulty issues, it has to be stated that it is a fun game. It plays really well. It certainly has a good deal of personality in the art and animation, and quite frankly, I really like it. The gameplay is engaging, which I find kind of strange because usually I don't like the Final Fantasy turn-based system all that much, and it managed to maintain the XCOM one more mission mentality. I would certainly recommend it if you want a good semi-roguelike randomized mission experience. Thanks for watching, and of course, as always, enjoy the rest of your day.